Good morning, Evelyn Knights. Today is Wednesday, May 20th. Today we're going to finish up with Pheasant and Kingfisher, the book that we read the other day. And you might want to rewatch the video from yesterday so that you have all of the sequencing of events in order with what we're going to do later on. Before we get into the sequencing though, I want to go over the difference between realism and fantasy that we saw in the story. So remember, realism is something that could happen, and fantasy is something that could not happen. So I made a T-chart, and under realism, the things that I found that could really happen in the story are two men traveling. Remember, we had Book and Barid, and they were traveling together. Two men camped and hunted. Two men sang and danced. Two men made spears. So those are all things that could really happen. Then we had that the two men talked with a visitor. We had that the men made a plan. The visitor told them the enemies were coming. They were upset about the bamboo. And so they made a plan about what they were going to do. And then they fought with the enemies. When the enemies, those other men came, they actually fought with them. So all of these are things that could really happen. Now, under the fantasy column, we had feathers started to grow. Remember when they were getting overcome with all the spears, they decided to put their plan into action and use their powers. So they started to sprout feathers. Their arms turned into wings. Well, not many of us can turn into a bird. And then the bamboo spears and the spear throwers turned into a tail. And then the other tail was made out of the burning fire stick. So the birds, the feathers started to grow, and then the tails grew out of the different things that the birds were holding, the men were holding. And then completely, the two men turned into birds. And then the enemies turned into stone. And if you remember from the stories, that's how we got the bird, we got pheasants. And that's how we got kingfishers. So those were the two different birds that they turned into. And if you go to the area where they lived, you can still see the stony landscape where their enemies had turned into stone. Excuse me. So that's the landscape of that area where they were living. Okay. So realism versus fantasy. Okay, we are going to go over to the book camera, and I'm going to show you your papers that you're going to do in the packet. So if you want to get your packet ready, that would be great. And then get your math page. Today we're going to do page 614 in your math. I'll meet you over at the book camera. Okay, so here on our matrix for the reading, it says cut apart the sentence strips on page 9 of your reading packet. Use page 10 to paste the strips in the order they happened in the story. You may need to watch Tuesday's video again. So if in your packet, if you turn to page 9, you see the sequence of events. It says, these events happen in Pheasant and Kingfisher. Cut them out and put them in the right order to make a book. Paste each sentence on a piece of paper and draw a picture to go along with each one and staple the pages together. Okay, we're going to do this a little different. We're not going to do the book, but what you can do is what we did. I'm going to take apart page 9. If you go to the next page here on page 10, it says use this page to paste the sentences from page 9 in the order that they happened. So this is how we're going to do it. We're not going to actually make a book and draw the pictures. So you are going to first of all cut out all of the rectangles There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. And then I would not glue them down until I knew which order they went into. So let's go ahead and read through them. Book, book, and buried, turn into birds and fly away. Well, we know that that kind of happens at the bottom of the story. So if I were to put that one on page 10, I would kind of put it down here towards the bottom. All right, then it says, book, book, and buried, hunted, sang, danced, and made spears from bamboo. Okay. Book, book, and buried, made camp where bamboo spears grew. Book, book, and buried, painted themselves. Their enemies came after them with spears. Book, book, and buried, used their powers. Najalambo warned them that the people were angry. All right, so you have to remember what the story was and put these in the correct order. You might want to go back and watch yesterday's video. Alrighty, so that's what you're going to do for your reading assignment. And then, if you would, please take a picture of your page 10 with all of your strips of paper in the right order, and then put that onto Seesaw. And if you would like to read them, that would be great, or you can just take a picture, but then I can check it over. All right, so that's your reading assignment. Let's take a look at our math assignment for today. It says, do guided practice numbers 1 through 3 on page 614 in your math packet. Tell a family member your answers to the Talk Math question. Now, before we do that, I want to show you my circle that I made, or my clock, okay? Now, the clock, oops, sorry, finger over the camera. The clock the other day, we divided the clock in half. We did this line down the middle, and we had a half an hour or halfway around the clock this way, and then we had halfway around the clock that way, okay? Now, another thing we can do with our clock is we can divide the clock horizontally this way. So now it breaks it up into 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each one of those 4 sections is called a quarter. Like how it takes 4 quarters to make $1. There are 4 quarters in an hour. Every hour is 60 minutes. And 15 plus 15 plus 15 plus 15 is 60 minutes. So when they talk about a quarter after or a quarter to an hour, they mean 15 minutes. We have a quarter here. We have a quarter here. We have a quarter here. And we have a quarter here. So we have 4 quarters that make up the clock. All right, let's see if I can put this back without putting my finger over the camera again. All righty. So now let's take a look at page 613 in your math packet. The clock is divided into quarters for you, just like my clock was. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections of the clock. And then every one of these sections is worth 15 minutes. Let's find out. So we can start up here at the 12, and we're going to count by 5s for the first